Chris Merrill, Joe Huizenga. I'm Chris. He's Joe. And joining us in studio now is Arizona's Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes. Pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much for coming in. I know it's been a long day. You were just telling us here a moment ago that the office has been open since
4:30.
Before the golf course attendants were out watering this morning. Your people were in.
This is the life of an election administrator. We wake up very, very early on election day, and we're going to have folks in the office till midnight or later, probably much later. That's just the way it works.
How you talk about the timing? How does this work? As you're waiting for information to come from other counties. I mean, do you have a courier bringing things in? Do they email you results?
Yeah, we get there's the owls from Hogwarts.
The carrier patrol is very good. Yeah, love it.
No, we have telephones and computers. We
Interesting.
We have we actually practiced our election night reporting system a couple of weeks ago, where we had a bunch of the counties transmitting stuff to us, and then we would transmit it out to a variety of different media outlets, or they would come and fish the data in from a portal that we had set up. So we want to make sure that we're working on these things way ahead of time, being prepared. And then our programmers got in there at about 4 o'clock this afternoon to make sure everything was still good to go, so that once we started getting results in at 8 p.m., which is when we get results from the counties, then we could report from the Secretary of State's office. But remember, the counties run elections in Arizona. We have a really important role supporting them, and we certify at the end of the day. But this is really a county activity.
So Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes joins us, and I like where you were going there. It's real dumb guy, simple question right off the bat for me. Just explain your role in the process then. Treat me like a total moron, because you just said the counties handle the vote and what's going on here. So your role is...
Yeah, we'll pretend it's Sunday afternoon, right? The counties are the football teams. I'm Goodell over in the commissioner's office.
Okay.
We make sure we set up the rules properly. We certify the elections officials. We certify the equipment, doing logic and accuracy tests before and after the elections to make sure that nothing happened with the equipment. And we do a lot of training. We go out and find resources, federal resources and other resources for these officials. They're the ones that actually do all the stuff. They get the polling places. They train the poll workers and recruit them. They will make sure to certify many of the candidates, and we also do some of the candidates as well. They do campaign finance reform for a lot of the candidates. We do some of it at our office. So we've got some split duties, but at the end of the day, if this was a professional sports league, I'd be the commissioner. The county recorders and election directors would be the folks out there on the field running the teams.
I love that analogy. I'm an analogy guy, and I appreciate the visuals that you offer with that. So to use that, you've got the NFL, the Commissioner Goodell, like you talked about. The teams kind of do their own thing, and he sits back and kind of watches how everything is executed between the two conferences, so to speak. One of the things that I'm baffled by, it's a little bit in the weeds, and I think it's fair to go here now so that we know the information before November, is tell about the mechanisms themselves, the machines themselves. Is everyone using the same machine? Is everyone on an IBM, or are some people using a Mac and others are on the PC?
Yeah, well, again, this is a county-run thing. So we've got 3 separate election management systems, is what we call them, here in Arizona. When we don't have voting machines, let's be really clear, nobody casts a ballot on a machine. Every ballot that is cast on a paper ballot. Arizona has been that way for a very long time. So if somebody's telling you, oh, we got to get rid of the machines, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, so number 1. Number 2, we have 3 different contractors who supply us with these. They're all certified through the Elections Assistance Commission, the VVSG, which is the guidelines that they use, and it's a whole bunch of technical stuff to certify all of this equipment. They all have to go through certifications, not only through an independent committee that we put together, but also at the federal level. So we've got Dominion machines. There I go saying it. We've got Dominion equipment in Maricopa County. We've got Unisys equipment, I believe, in Yavapai County, and the rest of them are some combination of ES&S equipment. So again, it is a county-run thing. these elections. And that's important because in Arizona, we are a bottom-up state, and we kind of like it that way.
So for clarification, some states may use, for instance, a touch screen. We've heard people with the horror stories of, I tried to vote for so-and-so and it registered for someone else. That would be a voting machine. What you're talking about is like a tabulator and then an interface system?
So the vast majority of our voters vote on a piece of paper, a paper ballot.
Right.
There are very few folks, though, who will come in either during in-person early voting or on election day and will use a machine that is what's called a BMD, a ballot marking device. And that basically is kind of the thing you described. It's got a touch screen, but it also has headphones for folks who are sight impaired or blind. It has sip and puff technology for folks who don't have the use of their hands. It's in Maricopa County, they've got these great pieces of equipment, and you can vote any ballot in the county at these in any county. And so basically what this does is create a paper ballot that the voter can then verify before they submit into the tabulator itself. So the tabulator is different than the ballot marking device. They're separate devices and they're not connected.
Okay.
And that's one of the only things that you see. And it is a de minimis number of voters who actually use these ballot marking devices. In fact, I think I remember a general election in Maricopa County, which has millions of voters, where we only had a couple hundred of them that were cast on these kinds of devices. But that is to help voters with disabilities and voters who have different abilities.
You mentioned you'd had a really long day, and
Oh, yeah.
and your team's had a really long day. We knew a week ago President Biden, former President Trump, had secured enough votes to be their party nominees. Are we wasting your time? Are we wasting Arizona's voters' time holding this PPE so late in the process?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it's really important that we understand that we don't always know that the decision is going to be made this far ahead of time. And by the time we get here, we're so far into it. It was only 2 weeks ago that Super Tuesday happened. So maybe we found out then, but it was more than 3 weeks ago that we actually mailed out all of our early ballots to all of our voters. So it absolutely makes sense. And the other reason it makes sense is because we've got a lot of new folks helping out in certain jobs in our election systems in Arizona. You know that because of these ridiculous threats, these un-American, this domestic terrorism that's happening against our elections officials, we've had to replace a lot of county recorders, a lot of election directors since the last presidential election. This is, if anything, a great practice run for them. It's their first statewide election for many of them. It's my first statewide election as Secretary of State, right? I've run elections in Maricopa County, which is bigger than many states, but then I haven't done it from this seat. So this is really a great way for us to prepare for the July 30th primary and the November general election. And so I don't think it's a waste of time. That having been said, you do get a lot of arguments that say, well, maybe we should let everybody vote in this thing. And there's a lot of other issues. But from my perspective, and that is the perspective of the election administrator, the folks who run the show, this is absolutely not a waste of time.
We saw early ballots seem to be, mail-in ballots, I should say, seem to be good turnout again, as Arizona has been known to do. I know we had that, I don't even know if you want to call it a hiccup in 2020, but there was certainly a push away from mail-in ballots.
Well,
Seems
actually,
that we're back to it.
No, 2020 was the one where everybody mailed in their ballots.
And people said that's a problem.
Then it was get away
Then it
for
was-
2022.
They said it was a problem because, one candidate lost.
Yeah.
That wasn't a problem.
That tends to happen every year.
Yeah, now it does. No, it was actually it was the highest turnout election in American history.
Sure.
And Arizona beat everybody else for their increase in turnout. We did a hell of a job here as a state. I'm very proud of the work my team back at Maricopa County did in 2020. I was the recorder, as you recall. And we're doing okay for this one. I mean, my last update shows just over 908,000 votes in so far. Now, these are early votes, so we're not talking about so we're talking about, these combinations, and they come in different stages, and I think that's kind of confusing and frustrating for people. Right now, it's about a little under 35% of all voters. Turnout's higher for Republicans right now. I'm looking at 36 plus percent to Democrats is at 32%. So turnout's not terrible right now, but again, there's a lot more ballots that are going to be tabulated as we speak. It's happening in our 15 counties. So we'll be getting bigger numbers by the end of the evening.
But turnout in other states has been way off from that. I think California was something like 20 or 22%. And so already we're well over 30%. I mean, for an election that, as we've discussed, was a foregone conclusion, that seems pretty good to me.
Well, look, Arizonans care, right? And Arizona is a battleground state. It really matters. And even though, this isn't a Trump versus Biden election, this isn't really even an election, to be honest with you. All we're doing is selecting delegates to a political convention.
Yeah.
Right? We're not even picking an actual nominee. That happens at the convention, technically. But Arizonans care, and we care about our elections. We care about the process. Many of us have been misled into thinking there are problems and issues with the process, but at the end of the day, that means they care, and I think that's important.
You've called this a practice run. What do you learn from a night like tonight?
Well, we learned that folks are doing the job exactly the way it ought to be. I can tell you right now.
No issues today.
We did a press conference at 9 a.m., and I said, we'll call another press conference if we feel like there's something that needs to be discussed. No new press conference. It's gone very, very well, knock on wood. But we're not done yet. And speaking for those election administrators out there who are hard at work as we speak right now, this doesn't end for them tonight. It doesn't end for them tomorrow or Thursday. We don't finish until we have the official canvass done on April the 4th, which is when we're going to have our final official canvassed results. And then we're already gearing up for the next election.
I'm lucky. I get to tell Chris nothing keeps me up at night. What keeps you up at night as you prepare for, you've still got a primary coming up in July. You've got the general coming up in November. What keeps the Secretary of State up at night?
Well, coming and talking to you guys keeps me up tonight.
I don't blame you.
I'm usually at the gym pretty early in the morning. I'm asleep by now most nights. But look, I think what keeps me up is really trying to figure out how we're going to regain faith in one another as Americans. What keeps me up at night are the really, really big issues. For some reason, there are some folks out there who have chosen, and they've chosen in the face of uncontrovertible evidence, they've chosen to think that there's something wrong with our election system. They've made a conscious decision to think that there's some widespread fraud or some nefarious actors out there manipulating these systems. In spite of all the redundancies, in spite of all the accountability, in spite of all the transparency, they are choosing this path. The thing that keeps me up at night is trying to figure out how we're going to bring them back to reality, how we're going to bring these folks back into believing in their fellow citizens again, because at the end of the day, it's a lack of faith that puts them where they are. And they've chosen to give up on America, and that really bothers me.
Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes in studio. It's been a pleasure having you in here this evening, and I know a long day, so I don't want to keep you up any later. We're gonna let you get
we're not done till way later tonight. But thanks for having me, and thanks for promoting this stuff, guys.
We look forward to the next opportunity.
Thank you.